And I come from a small town, about 50 miles from the city of New York. I am a real solid New Yorker, proud of it. Lived in London for 15 years, and now I'm residing in Miami Beach. Why? The same reason you live here, the weather. I do believe that this is without question, after 30 years. It's easy for me to say, I'm not the one with the margin pressure. But it is, without a doubt, an extraordinary time for you to be in the business. And that's what I'm going to talk about. But before I do that, can I share, since you guys taught me how to do good day, can I teach you how to do the New York thing? Shall we do that? Yeah? So when two New Yorkers pass each other on the street, you go, how you doing? To which the reply is, no, how you doing? So repeat after me. When I'm going to greet you, you can, yeah, nice, strong Aussie. So how you doing? Forget about it. That's great. That's wonderful. What does that have to do with today? Nothing. I like this notion, but I just changed a word to use the word transformation. And actually, Chris, you inspired this next chart, as a matter of fact, which will come in a second. But you know what that is? Yes, it's a Rolodex. I showed that slide at Google, and they went, what's that? Now, my mentor was a guy named Gene Hummel. Anybody? I think there's a McCann person here. You might remember the name of Gene Hummel. He was my mentor. He was the guy that put the network of McCann together. And I remember walking in the elevator at McCann. I was only about there a couple of months, I suppose. Actually, it was about half a year. And this guy walks in with a fedora hat. He looked like right out of the 1950s. Elevator closing. And of course, Gene had a very high-pitched voice and always had two words in just about every sentence. Hell and goddamn it. Right? Are you Kevin Allen? Yes. I heard about you. Highest rise in McCann in a long goddamn time. Come see me at the Yale Club, and I'll tell you about McCann. So, of course, I go to see him, and I ask, the first question I ask is, well, what's the culture of this place? Culture, yeah. We don't stab you in the back, we stab you in the front. So that gives you some idea of what I was getting myself into. Gene was the guy that flew on a super constellation in the 50s with the chairman of Coke to form the network. Now this is, by way of context, how this business has changed. So he and the CEO would land in, say, the Philippines, go to the first richest family, and the Coke guy would say, how would you like to have a bottler franchise? And Gene would go to the second richest family and say, how would you like to open up a McCann office? And the dots on the map. And there was a reason for that, because the economy of those days was a supply economy. But one of the things he said to me when I noticed this in his office, I said, that's a pretty goddamn big Rolodex, Gene. I mean, this thing was like the mother of all Rolodexes. And he goes, you know what that is? That's goddamn money. And you know why? Because I am indispensable to every single page on that Rolodex. I'm the first guy they call. Wouldn't you like to be that? You can. I believe it in my soul. So Chris, this is the slide I put in after our chat last night. Anybody know what that is? Yes, it's a product life cycle. And I remember learning that in graduate school. And the idea was that you went through a series of stages, but eventually you died. Isn't that uplifting? However, I think we all agreed that it was entirely possible in the maturity stage to reinvent and remain relevant. And that's really what this is about. And I'll show you a couple of examples before I'm going to give you my 2 cents on some of the things you possess and why I believe in my soul that this is your time. Yeah? By this way, this is another one. I found this. Adiz's 10 life stages. Courtship, infancy, go-go, adolescence, prime, stability, aristocracy, recrimination, bureaucracy, and death. And one of the things that characterizes maturity is the things you're experiencing. Low margins, hyper-competition, all the things that's making you utterly crazy is what you're living in right now. But it doesn't mean you're going to live in that forever. Yeah? Provided there are steps that you take. So I joined McCann in 1991, and we were the gods. We were it. I mean, there was no such thing as Google. There was a McCann. The biggest building in Costa Rica was the McCann Erickson building. Give you some indication, yeah? And that model was going on for 15 years. We charged people 15% on media. We made one television commercial, ran the hell out of it, and flew the Concorde. That was the model. I love now, this is the way we flew around all the first class in those days. Now I'm the guy in 56D, you know. Oh my God, an exit row, I'm so excited, you know. My life has changed. I'm the schnook that no one knows. 1992, a guy named Peter Seeley comes on the scene and goes, guess what? Game over. I'm taking this business to CAA in Hollywood. They're going to make the commercials. Anybody remember that? And the whole thing literally collapsed, and McCann Erickson lost its cornerstone account. And I remember what we were thinking at the time. There ain't no way out of this. There is no way out of this. We're dead. No, we weren't. No one could have predicted that. And all it took was a couple of people who decided to create what I call a real ambition. Yeah? Not an ambition, not 15% growth. And what are you going to create as a consequence of that disaster? And I have to tell you, I think sometimes it's the great hardships that really give you the impetus. Because guess what? You got no choice. Yeah? When things are going great, change comes very, very slowly. Yeah? Aberrati Puris Low Lintas. A collision. This is one of the things that that IPG was famous for. Well, let's just merge the bastards. You know, they put 4 or 5 companies together and watch them literally eat each other alive. Yeah? 102 markets. So it wasn't big enough to be a network, but it was not small enough to be a nimble firm. And so a few of us, including a wonderful man named Tony Wright, and Stephen Gatfield, and myself, and a few others, a wonderful woman who's here, by the way, Michelle O'Neill. Where's Michelle? Mwah! You're going to hear from her. This is the best planner I ever worked with. Lowen Partners. The first micro network, right? And people said, wait a minute, wait. You're going to do multinational advertising in 30 offices? That defies the idea that you need 205 offices to do global. No, it doesn't. Anybody know who that is? Phil Geyer. Most of the time he was smoking a cigar. The Interpublic Group was effectively a bank. And in 2004, I get a call from a man named David Bell, who was installed as the new CEO after the accounting scandal that brought Interpublic from $48 a share to $6 a share. Was nearly out of business. I thought I was being called to be fired, actually, but actually he wanted me to build the first activist holding company program. So the transformation from a bank, effectively, to an organization that would foster collaboration was virtually unheard of. This is probably my favorite, and I'm leading up to a notion that I want to leave with you before I give you some thoughts, specifically on the business. In 1993, there were 3,269 murders in the city of New York every single year. And that was just a tip of the iceberg of what it was like to live in the city of New York. And the general philosophy was that it is impossible. New York is not capable of being governed. And you simply have to accept the fact that this is the way it is. And 6 of us, actually 8 of us, met in a darkened conference room in a law office on 3rd Avenue at 43rd Street with a guy who had just lost the bid for election for the mayor of the city of New York, a guy named Rudy Giuliani. And in that room, 2 years before the election, we made a decision. It's the same kind of decision that a few of you can make, which is, I refuse to accept this wisdom that we cannot do this. I refuse to accept that we cannot be the #1 phone call that the CEO makes to us.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone, and one we intend to win, and the others too.
I'm old enough to have seen that live on television. Sitting next to we come from a working class family. No one worked except my mother. And she drove around in a 1953 Buick 88. $50 she paid for it. But it had one little flaw. It had no reverse. Little detail. And we wanted a black and white television. And of course, we bought the TVs the same way, right? It had a broken antenna. But my brother had the idea is, you know how to make a black and white TV with no antenna work? A coat hanger. So you tie a bunch of them together, and you sit across the room holding onto the coat hanger going, I've got to go to the bathroom. Yeah, hold on to this. I'll be right back. But I remember seeing this black going, moon? Well, how the hell are we going to do that? Now think of the words he chose. He didn't say, so what do you think? Should we go? Oh, fuck it. Let's go to Brazil. When you set a course to change an organization, you've got to establish what I call a real ambition that sounds impossible. If it doesn't sound impossible, if it doesn't make your knees shake, it's not an ambition that's going to cascade through the organization. It has to be galvanic and emotive. It has to be something that the youngest person in the organization goes, damn, that's why I want to be part of this. Yeah? So make sure it sounds utterly transformative as you write those. That's what we wrote a month in, the 6 of us. We will make the city of New York safe for people to live the life of their ambitions. We had no idea what the strategies were, no more than they knew how to go to the moon. And all we did was meet and talk and engage. I love this topic of diversity because that is, without question, how high-performing companies will succeed. We had everybody at that table you could imagine, including this weird guy with curly hair comes in and puts a slide. Ready for this? It wasn't a slide. It was an overhead. Ah! I'm old enough to remember. I feel like my Uncle Dappy. His name was David. His name was Dappy. And we would be talking and go, I remember we used to go to school with a sack of potatoes on our shoulders and I had a wooden leg. I went, Uncle Dappy, you don't have wooden legs now. It doesn't fucking matter, you know? It just sound like him. Anyhow, the power of real ambition is setting an objective of this scale and of this scope, yeah? Okay. Now, I believe that we are experiencing the greatest single revolution since the steam engine. You can have any color you want as long as it's black. And this is the world we lived in, a distribution economy. We were in charge. You know what my job was when I was a little assistant account executive? I managed OOS, out of stocks, which meant I got this great big spreadsheet. I was a pretty crappy account guy, by the way. I didn't understand numbers, but that's the whole other thing. And it'd say, we're out of stock of Jell-O in Cleveland. Pull the advertising. And we stopped the TV. And as soon as the Jell-O arrived back on the shelf, you turn the TV on again. Print and outdoor, who cares? And then later it became below the line. We had all kinds of pejorative terms for anybody that didn't produce a television commercial, right? We organized like this, and we had a manual. Notice, ladies, organization man. Women and need not apply. I was in the closet in those days. Believe me, if you came out, you were dead. Your career was over. Forget being a woman. What? A woman lead an agency? Are you mad? 1981, a group in Atlanta came up with a new formula. Guess what that formula did? It tastes better than old Coke. It tasted better than Pepsi. And blind taste test. Anybody know this case? Of course we do. Coca-Cola introduces new Coke, and what happened? The place went batshit. And a lady writes a letter to the CEO of Coke and says, I believe in 3 things, my country, my church, and Coca-Cola. How dare you take it from me? That was the shot across the bow that said, guess what? We ain't in charge anymore. I'm in charge. It's my brand. I will tell you what you do with it. Think later on, how many years later, when people said, you will not make trainers in India by 11-year-olds. So said the Nike citizenship. Welcome to the demand economy. I love this book. If you've not read this book, I highly recommend it. It's called War in the Boardroom. Anybody remember a positioning statement? I know you will. Trout and Reese, they invented the positioning statement. And here's this guy at 75 who says, we are undergoing the greatest revolution since boardrooms were created. You know why? Because guess what? Marketing is at the table. So all these left-brain people that would talk about earnings per share and other number of things now have someone sitting across from them going, brand essence. And they're going, what are you talking about? And it's a collision. I predict to you that within the next 5 years, we will see with a top 25 Fortune 500 company will be drawn from the marketing ranks. Promise you, the days of the left brains running these companies is over. You see where I'm going here, right? The seismic shift is from the distribution-based economy, namely, I will get Coke syrup to 205 markets and turn on the advertising to a human connection. This is a human right brain engagement game. Like Maya Angelou says, you may be forgotten for what you said, you may be forgotten for what you did, but you'll never be forgotten for how you make people feel. And that's the business, that's the impetus of what we're getting involved in now. Yeah? So, clients need more help than ever before. I was just with your group here, the AANA, and if you could have been the fly on the wall, they're going, here's what they're saying, help! They're dying. They need help. And what's amazing is they're saying, the agency guys are not listening. They're going, integration, search engine optimization. It's sort of like when you call up the plumber. It's like when you call the plumber to your house, and the plumber comes and goes, hey, what do you think of this wrench? Pretty good, huh? I don't give a shit about the wrench. I want you to unplug my sink. Right? Listen to
Today's
this.
business world is so fierce and so intensely competitive that it's absolutely critical more and more to combine creativity and innovation with strategic business thinking. You have to. And sadly, most agencies don't do that today. And if you don't do that, there are plenty of other companies out there who will deliver both creativity and innovation combined with strategic thinking, and they're going to eat away at your business. It's just a matter of, it's just factual. You've got to stay on top of it. You've got to stay one step ahead and combine those two.
That's Andy Janowski. He and Angela Ahrens turned around Burberry. Notice what he said. We usually think these are two separate things. Strategic business thinking, and then those weird people on that 15th floor that do that creative thing. Right? Creating solutions for tough business problems is what we will be called upon to do. Lateral, right-brain thinking to solve insoluble business problems that are keeping up our clients up at night is the game. And you, no one else, with no disrespect, I don't know if there's any McKinsey people in the room, but with no disrespect, guess what? They ain't got the answer. You do, in my humble opinion. Anybody ever read this before, Marketing Myopia? It's a really quick read. It was written in 1981. It's the best thing I ever read. So if you don't read it, here's the cliff notes. Right? The railroads went out of business not because of a lack of demand for transportation. That was growing. They went out of business because they defined themselves as railroads. Otherwise, you would have Reading Airways. Or it wouldn't be Expedia. It would be somebody else, namely them. But they thought, no, I'm in the railroad. When I was at McCann, I remember a guy saying to me before I got up to give a speech like this on a concept called brand citizenship, he leaned over and says, you're not going to talk about that citizenship shit again, are you? The cultural impetus not to change. It's almost as if the boardroom was like, you know what? There's these guys, this thing called, they call them airplanes. They're going to take people to France. Get the hell out of here. That's impossible. Let's just ship. It's the way to go, you know? You possess the most valued skill in the 21st century, Carmen. You are creators. Please never, ever take that for granted. You know, it's always true of the skill that you're really great at. You just say, well, no, I just do that. Not everybody can do it. And clients cannot. I don't care about this business. Oh, we'll bring it internally. Crap, I don't believe it for a second. Become creative solutionists. I don't care what the discipline is. That's the plumbing. You are masters of the most powerful form of human communication. You are storytellers. You know, 20,000 years ago, you know, Ugg would be sitting around his campfire and he painted stuff on the walls, right? Remember what it was? What did they paint on the walls, the caves? Hunting, right? Why hunting? It seems, could be a little more creative than that. Did you ever try to throw a rock and kill a wild boar? Not so easy. Yeah? And he told a story about this, an exciting story. And these stories have been passed down. It's the most powerful form of human communication, and you know how to do that. This year, was it this year or last, the titanium was won for Of Real Beauty, sketches. Right? Have you seen that? A powerful story. That story, priceless, they are stories that endure 15 years later. Yeah? So become 21st century brandgelists. So like Brangelina, you know, brand evangelists. I made that up. I own that. Yeah? One of the single most important things that even my little company does for clients is cascade the brand idea inside the company. How many of you are working toward pushing the idea of the brand inside the organization? Right down to the guy who changes the loo roll. Most important thing you can be doing. But we used to say, well, we don't do that. That's internal. Yeah? You have the special ability to see what others don't see. And it's what, when I mention my dear Michelle or Tony or Peter Kim, the ability to go, it's that. Clients don't need more data. They don't need more data. You know what they need? They need wisdom. And you can give that to them. Yeah. You're in the right place at the right time. You're right-brain people helping left-brain people solve right-brain problems. I know it sounds a little weird, but 'tis a fact. And you are those people. Be fearless in confronting the big ones. I don't understand why the industry seems content in solving tactical issues when the client is dying for someone to get a meeting and say, try this. And all you have to do is look at the companies that are growing to see what kind of dialogue are they having and how many of them are in the C-suite. More than you could imagine. We say, oh no, we'll never get there. That's impossible. That's the C-suite. They don't care. Trust me when I tell you, I work with these people. 90% of my business is with these people, and they're dying. And if you know the expression my mom used to say, you don't ask, you don't get. Get the meeting. Michelle will tell you, we hadn't turned low around, but we got the meeting with Simon and said, we're going to build a company of 35 markets, talent, venture, capitalists. That's what we're going to do. And we're going to get rid of regional stuff. It's going to be all about the talent. And if the best baby person in the world is in Sao Paulo, that's what's going to be in your business. What do you think of that? And he goes, build it. I'm still going to punish you, it's Omo, but nonetheless, I'm not going to fire you outright. That's what happened. Get the meeting, then build, yeah? That's what I always say. You are in possession of instruments. Now, I saw a flyby when I was last in London of the Spitfire, so I'm a bit of a World War II buff. And a great Churchill, I borrow from Churchill. You are in possession of instruments of colossal and shattering power. It's not a Spitfire. You have the tools to mobilize what I call brand citizens. It's how elections are won. And you don't do that logically. When I wrote my first book, I called my mom and I said, do you know anybody who sold door to door? She said, yeah, Enid Merrin. She sold encyclopedias, door to door. And I called Enid and I said, Enid, how the hell were you the top saleswoman in 1965? She drove a white Cadillac, like 2 blocks long. The car arrived a month before she did. She was only this high. She's only this high. And she goes, honey, I'll tell you, very simple. A mother does not want a set of encyclopedias. She wants her kid to be president. At the end of the day, you are the people who can mobilize what the basis upon which people make decisions, the power of human emotion. That's our currency. So don't be plumbers, be mobilizers. Yeah? So here's my little checklist, and then I'm going to get off. So when, it's always a good thing is whenever they give you time, finish oily. They'll love you for it. Reimagine. When I spoke with Angela, how she turned around Burberry, she said 3 things. Culture, a reimagining of role and clarity, and then I let them fly. And I let them fail, I let them think, but I told them I loved them. How simple that is. So here's my checklist for you. And there's things you do internally, and things you do externally. The first is organization design. Do you realize how few organization designs have been innovated in this industry? What is the biggest innovation since the planner? Gee, I wonder. And yet client organizations are reinventing roles literally by the week. Blow it up. When we said we were going to get rid of regional directorships in Lowe, I thought they were going to kill me. But this is the magnitude of the things. Roles and skills. Who's going to do what? And do we honestly have, and you've got to be hard on yourselves, because at the end of the day, this business is about talent. Do we have the quality of talent to do what we're going to set out to do? And if we don't, you know what old Welsh used to do? Fire the bottom 20%. I know that sounds horrible, but guess what? This is a survival game. Yeah? Tools and practices. When we invented the demand chain. Now, I know it's a little archaic now, but we realized how we're going to chain together all these disciplines on behalf of a client. Invent new processes that will help clients in this environment. Your business story. Have you gone online recently and looked at the business stories of most agencies? Holy crap. It's sort of like insert logo here. You know? And training and development. I challenge this industry. This is one of the lowest indexing industries in training and human resources. And yet, we call ourselves people who have talent, go up and down the elevators each day. Yeah? Think that through. Now, then externally, find the catalyst. There's some client, there's a search consultant, there's somebody who is going to appreciate and understand this amazing new promise that you're bringing forward. And enlist them. Catalysts, observers, followers, resistors. Identify the people who will go, oh, wow, that is amazing. And let them help you to bring it up. Create an exemplar. The one example in your firm that says, see, this is what we do that's part of this 21st century construct. Isn't it amazing? Put business development at the very spirit of all those turnarounds. What, do you think we could change 1,500 people in the McCann New York office alone, let alone 38,000? We put it in a new business pitch, and we won it. Which then said, guess what? We better damn well make this stuff. So business development became the spear point, because remember, the only time the organization comes together as one whole is the Christmas party and a new business pitch. Right? Evangelize. How many of you guys are out there speaking? Believe me, you have no concept of the impact you can do. And you say, well, I mean, what have I got to say? No more than when I left the business, I thought to myself, well, I'm 13 years old and my self-image, what have I got to say? A lot. Everyone in here's got a point of view. Get out there. Yeah? Take the meeting. See people you've never seen before. And then when you've done that, do it again. Because this is a constant process of reinvention. You have a wonderful agenda this morning. I mean, some of the organizations that you've featured, I think, are living some of this. And I'm really, really excited for you. Let me close with two quotes. One was both of them from Rudy Giuliani, as it happens. And then one other I'm going to give you. The first is, every time we thought, well, we can't solve that, and welfare, blah, 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 he said, people created this problem so people can fix it. This is not surgery. This is not cancer, thank God. People got us into this. Right? And the other thing he used to say is, it can be done and it will be done. When you calibrate that kind of real ambition I was talking about, oh hell with it, let's go to Brazil. That's when you don't get to where you need to get to. For God's sake, remind yourself of the goal that you set. It's been my absolute pleasure. The one thing I will finish with, my mom called me about a year ago and she said, I've decided I'm going to enter the Miss New York State senior pageant. Yeah. My brother and sister were like, holy shit, Ma, don't do that. It's really embarrassing. I was like, honey, you go, girl. And she calls me about 3 months ago and says, I made the finals. So I thought, okay, I'm flying in. I got to see this, right? So there she is, a room full of 1,000 people, and she has to give, she does the little, I said, no swimsuit. No, 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 no. I draw the line somewhere here. And she says, so she does the performance of I'm Still Here, which is absolutely hilarious. And then her life's philosophy, and I want to leave that with you. Because I was lucky to have heard that in this crazy, poor old dysfunctional family, but God knows it got us through, yeah? And these are the same things that will help you confront this midlife crisis. The first thing is, no matter how much money you have in this life, the only real possession you have is the person that you are and the gifts that you've been given. It's the only possession you got. Be yourself. Burberry didn't change Burberry, but they found this DNA and reimagined it. Yeah, you can do that. Yeah. The second thing she said is, Just because you don't know what to do doesn't mean you don't know what you're doing. And she said that to me when I left Lowe. And I was like in the wilderness. What the hell am I going to do with myself? And she says, honey, don't worry. The things that you will face, you don't have a recipe card for. You don't know how to do it. Don't worry. This room possesses some of the greatest talent in this industry. You will figure it out. You know? Listening is not waiting for your turn to speak, Kevin. Listen with emotional antennae. Yeah? And interdependence. The subject that's going to be talked about a little bit later about high-performing teams is listening to each other and creating a culture of reciprocity. And at the end of the day, she finally said, don't forget, we've always got each other. And God knows that's how we got through the calamitous times. You cannot do this alone. Oh, we integrate, we collaborate. Make it real. And from the bottom of my heart, you can imagine a kid who first listened to BBC World Service at 7 years of age, and I thought, oh, I'm going to go live in BBC. Find myself standing here before my brethren. You can do this. So God bless you and good luck, and thank you for having me.